Today we'll have a short Wolcen guide, and this one is about adding quick damage to any build. So right away, what you can look for is, I'm not sure if you have heard of it, the trial belt is really good, and what this allows us to do is to auto apply Mark of Impurity. This is only the case if you have the belt, you can auto cast a spell without on the spell bench. But if you do not have this spell, what you want to do is, you actually want to go for a build that gives you a dagger. You want to go for a build that uses the dagger, and even ranger builds can use daggers. You can use a dagger and a gun. After that, actually guns can work as well, right? So what I mean by that is, the pistols or guns with Mark of Impurity is actually a massive damage boost. Reason being is that the curse stacks increase damage taken by enemies, you make enemies more vulnerable, but the last two are the biggest ones. The enemies will spread on death upon getting marked, and also the enemies that are killed under the mark will explode for 15% of the maximum HP, and this is not related to your gears, not related to anything, but related to your critical chance and critical damage, because this one can critical hit. A monster with 100 million HP dies, it deals 15 million HP AoE, and if you have critical chance, let's say 4 times the critical damage, and you deal 60 million AoE damage, and this can go much further because you can start a chain explosion. So this is why Mark of Impurity, it's something that most players use for the late game. It's just so good with map clear and does so much damage. What you want to do is, if you have the trial, just use the trial, and if you don't have it, make sure your build have a dagger. For me, I happen to have the trial on the online account, so I'm using this for now, but if I didn't have it, and I've been making lots of builds without it, just have a dagger and you can manually cast it. There are other factors that doesn't require the trial though. So the next thing we want to look at is the ability to use your transform. My transform here, oh, where's my hotkey? Here it is. So my transform for the aspects of the apocalypse is going to be the aspect of war. Recently, a few of us shared the insight of this particular aspect is that the particular fire demon here you see does the Unflinching Assault. The Unflinching Assault is the first skill you do. This whole damage factor is not scaled by items, but rather the character level of your current character. At level 90, it's about 3 times the damage I do at level 78. Keep that in mind. So the higher level you are, the stronger you are with this one, but it doesn't have to be a big factor. So even at level 78 or 70 or even lower, you can do a lot with this. The combination is you want to use Unflinching Assault multiple times to gain freezing stacks. Usually you want to hit this at least 5 or 6 times with this spell to get a bunch of stacks, and then you want to be casting the second spell, which have a 3.2 second cooldown, which allows you to rotate the first spell again, right? So this cooldown is that you will actually be spending those frenzy stacks and multiply this damage massively. This actually goes much higher, and I have one-shot the boss with 85 million or even 100 million HP. What I'll do is I'll show you guys a quick video on this as well. Let's have a look at this in action during one of my recordings. So over here you can see there's a quick recording of the fight between the boss, and here you can see the video says one shot anything, right? You can see the boss HP is 85 million and he has a bit of the material shield, which actually makes it more durable. So what I'm going to do with my character, this is my first test with this particular combo, is I'm going to transfer. I'm going to hit him at least 5 times with to stack the frenzy stacks, and I'm going to try to one shot him. Let's have a look. So I'm going to run up, I'm going to transform, and this works with any build. If you have trouble with single target or with a boss, you do this. Notice I'm spamming the first spell, and I'm spamming it still. And the moment you spam a few times, I just go the second spell, and we one shot the 85 million boss. And this is massive. I think in the next part I did come up with one as well. So this is what I'm going to fight as a boss. One thing to keep in mind is the first time we fought the boss, we were actually at full bar of the transform essence. You get essence by killing monsters, and each one you kill will give a few, and if you kill a big one it gives a lot more, and you can also pick up those shires that give you like just instantly 1,000 essence. Actually it's 1,500. I do believe a half bar is 750, so it's 1,500. So with those bars, I tested if I'm on 3 bars and I'm fighting a boss, it's actually not enough. Simply because the boss will actually do damage to you, you break you out of transform before you can do anything to him. I recommend actually starting at half of bar, and this allows you to take some damage, not get back to the human form, and still to be able to do the combo at least 1 or twice. Let's have a look at this one. So here we're going to run to the boss and we're going to transform. After transforming, you do want to dodge some attacks so he doesn't bring you back to human form. Notice my time is going down. I need to make sure I quickly cast it before the timer breaks. I'm going to show you guys the freeze or damage. So here, after hitting it 5 or 4 times, I'm going to cast my spell. Notice I've paused at the time to show you guys just how much damage we do. So after doing this about 5 times, we one-shotted the boss for 138 million. This is a level 90 testing account. The damage won't be this high if you're using a level 70 character, keep that in mind. About 40 million at least, or maybe 30 million. But you can repeat this every 3 seconds. It doesn't require items, it doesn't require anything. As long as you have a full bar of rage, it actually does a lot. And this is what I love about, small things that changes the entire build or helps everyone with the gameplay. This is great. So the trial is great for you to kill things. If you kill a bunch of them, you get your particular essence stacks to transform. Now you can transform, you one-shot a lot of the hard boss. And this kind of loops back on itself. So this is what I really like. So next up, I'll go through some of the other useful perks with the talent tree and other things that can add damage to almost any build. And they won't be as game-changing as the trial, as the transform, but they are pretty good factors as well. So, right away, if you don't want to use the Mark of Impurity, if you don't want to use the trial, and you don't want to debuff enemies with anything, you really want to debuff enemies with a curse. So why is that? Is that the ability to have curses increase the damage the enemy takes. And let's have a look here. Curses is this one, and if you hover here, it says this increase the basically, it's over here, right? Where is it? Efficiency, direction, where is it? Yeah, there you go. I actually missed the first time. This element increases the damage received by targets and can be stacked onto them. So basically, enemy is more vulnerable to damage. In this game, there are a few things that's addictive, there are things that's multiplicative. When enemy take extra damage, it's multiplicative. When you do additional damage, usually with added damage, it's addictive. You want things that's multiplicative. And the first multiplicative thing we have is critical damage. So the critical damage multiplies your existing damage, added damage is only adding onto your existing damage. And curse makes enemy takes multiples of additional damage, and this is really good. If you don't have the trial which debuff enemy with a curse, you can actually look towards having a spell or having an attack spell that actually attack enemy with shadow damage, which gives you curse stacks. You can also look for more element stacks and other things, but having curse stacks on an enemy is really good. You can also reduce the damage with weakness stacks, of course, but we're here for more damage. Next to that, we're going to go to the talent tree. There are a bunch of perks that really helps any build, and I'll go through some of the common ones. So if you know how to do an element build, or if you have been playing elements, at least stacking elements on the enemy by having the double elements, you can go for Immortal Offering. This one usually double my damage or even triples my damage, just having the enemy killed with elements. I can easily stack 5 stacks on enemies by picking a perk that gives me more elements. So this one, each time I stack enemies, I get 2 plus elements instead of just 1, and also there's a chance of multiplying those by 2. So you can go for 100% multiplier, and this guarantees at least 5 stacks. And when you kill enemies with different stacks, because you can have different elements on different spells and attack spells, you can do 25% more damage, that's added by the way, 25% more added damage over the pretty much 6 or 7 different elements. And this usually doubles my damage, at least, when I have those stacks. Next up, we spoke about critical damage, and critical damage is great. I spoke about this multiple times, and if your critical chance is over 50%, the 60% critical damage is guaranteed better than 30% damage. Even if your critical chance is 30%, it's still better, even in a maths. So if you put in the calculator, you do the numbers, it's better, because one multiplies, one adds. After that, we'll look for some of the common known multipliers that gives us more damage. So the first multiplier will be something with this one, increased damage. I do believe this is a multiplier. It may be addictive, so correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I believe this one should be a multiplier, but it's possible because it just says damage. The increased damage might not be multiplied, but you get at least 5% damage for each enemy. Usually you're looking at least 5, 10 or even 15 enemies around you, so this one is not bad. But the guaranteed multiplier is this one. This one increases the enemy damage taken by 25%. This multiplies the damage taken, and this is really good. If you're debuffing enemies with status, which is another multiplier for damage, this just does a ton of work. So if you happen to slow enemies, stun them or freeze them, definitely consider this one, because it works wonderfully for everything. And if you can get any multipliers in the game that's global for all damage, it's just wonderful to have. I actually perked forwards here and I twisted my circle just so I can have this one. After that, this should be a multiplier as well. So if you go in for any of the rage build and if you have unconsumed rage or too much rage, this can be a small factor, but you know, if you have 1000 rage, that's 20% more damage. And if it's a multiplier, it's really good as well. There is another common multiplier that people don't usually use, because you tend to not only have one enemy around you. If you happen to find yourself in a situation with only one enemy around you all the time, this one can be good, because 25 damage percent increase is actually not bad. And I do believe, yeah, you do get 5% more as well. So you get 30% damage increase if you only have one enemy. But most of the builds in Wolcen consider AoE damage, you know, explode enemy for their maximum HP, and just does a ton of work with more damage with enemies. So more enemy are, the better it is for us. So this one is not usually picked unless we find a good build for it. After that, we spoke about the status increased enemy damage. This one increased enemy damage taken by 120%, or you do 120% more damage when enemy is debuffed with status. And yeah, there's so many ways to debuff enemy with status. Almost one mage spell, one warrior spell, and one ranger spell have this one. And those are the spells I'll show you guys again. I always go through the spells, so I was like, they're so good. So, to debuff enemies with status is going to be the Death Gazer for the ranger, the hook for the warrior, and also the anomaly for the mage. The Death Gazer will give us, I don't even have Death Gazer. Death Gazer level 5 will give us 100% status debuff perk. This is the one we want. Followed by that, the Tracker Reach will give us 100% status buff with this level perk. And this means the only hook that is straightforward towards enemy will be hooking enemies. So I'll show you guys the hook by getting some rage. Need some rage potion.
I can't do that.
Here you go. So this particular hook that goes through will be debuffing enemies. You do want to perk for damage, because if this one doesn't have any damage, it doesn't do anything. Yeah, they are already perked for damage. Yeah, this one also give me damage. So if you have this one, you don't need this one. So just need the one that perks the hook into damage. If you don't perk any of those, it doesn't have damage, and you can't hook the boss. And if you can't hook the boss, well, you can't debuff him. So it's about debuffing enemy first, then follow up with damage. Next up, as a mage, you have an anomaly spell, which is one of the best spells for mages. Its default is status effect, so you have the status chance. It might not be the highest chance, but it triggers so many times. As you can see, enemies are triggered multiple times in there. You just need one status debuff onto the enemy, and this is pretty common. And because you can go for the perk that allows you to cast twice, you can overlay them, you can put them on side, they just actually get bounced around. They get bounced right and forward. And this is actually really good for the debuff. So this is definitely a good multiplier for most of the builds, mages and warriors alike. After that, the best tendance that helps a build for the warriors will come back to the Frenzy Blow with the 750 more rage. You do double damage. This is the guarantee multiplier, one of the best ones for the warriors and rangers. You just have to make sure you over rage 750, and I've set it in another guide, so we can go for the 400 rage and willpower here for the warlock, and you get another 150 here, so you get over 1550 rage to guarantee that your rage is over 750. You can use potions to keep yourself topped up with rage, which is really important to use it before you cast the spell, not after. And lastly, there's things that gives you rage when you take damage, so 25 rage, and also here I believe is another 15, yeah, this one, so another 10 rage, so 35 rage in total when you take any instance of damage, which can be great because there's a combo you can do that actually it's this one, Fatal Pack, so you can debuff yourself with damage over time like bleeding, poison, rend, lightning, you know, fire, and when you damage yourself, you take multiple instances of damage over time, And when you do that, you also take the 35 rage when you take a hit, so you have infinite rage. If you want to see this guide, I did make an infinite rage warrior which uses this whole combination, infinite rage and double damage. Lastly, for the mage. The mage is not so favored in terms of double damage. There is one here. Where did it go? I already picked it. So I'm a hybrid mage. So acute damage will be added damage. That's increasing damage by 210% if enemies got curse stacks. Each curse stack is 7% more damage, and this is in the Abyssal Shaper. We go for 210% added damage, and this is massive. I mean, it pretty much doubles all your magical damage that's occurred. And I did use this build for the Lightsaber Mage. So what I do is, I'll get the Lightsaber in. Where's my Lightsaber? For the Lightsaber Mage, this particular spell is acute damage based spell. You can see that mostly we can add it to added damage, secret damage, and shadow damage. And this will be a major factor for it. And basically, we'll just use the Lightsaber. It groups enemy together, and we'll just start slashing them. The best part about this is, although notice here I'm spending lots of willpower, you have perks in there that actually allows you for critical to regen willpower. You can also kill enemies to get willpower back. It's always self-sustained if you have critical chances over at least 70%. Maybe 65% will do. So this is a really nice one for more added damage. Next one, if you have spare skill perks and if you happen to have a catalyst or two-hand staff, what I recommend is looking into the Plague Burst. This can be a good source of added damage because you're actually exploding enemies upon death and dealing damage over time. And the explosion is okay. The fact is the explosion increases damage for each element enemy has, because usually we debuff enemies a lot, and if you happen to do so, consider this one, because when you explode enemies, they actually take quite a bit of damage. It works similarly to the Mark of Impurity, but this one just does so much less. So I was gonna say so much more, I was like, no, Mark is so strong. So this one does so much less, but the good thing about this one is it's AoE. You don't have to do much. You can make this to follow you. So this one that follows you, which one is that? Hey, I'm sure this one that follows us, right? Why no you follow? Notice how big the range is? I'm sure this one that follows. Explosion damage, cast chance, increase chance. This one, oh, this usually follows us, but I was casting this into a mage spell, so I actually had the cast at the cursor location. Now it's no longer a cursor location. Look how big the aura is. So everyone that dies in this field will actually explode. It's like a corp explosion. And the fun fact is you can actually make it into corp explosion. So notice here there is a summoner ally explode upon cast if they're inside of the area of effect. If you pick for this perk, if you go for summons, there's a chance of exploding your summon units for the percentage HP of your summon units. It's a fun one, and if you guys haven't tried it, it's pretty much corpse explosion but summons explosion. It doesn't scale with anything in the game, so I think it only scales with summons HP. You just have to summon it, you just cast on it, it explodes and does at least 300k or 400k damage. So it's something gimmicky, I know, but you know, if you're early in the game, you want some fun, you summon a dude and the monsters fight it because this one has taunt. So he taunts, everyone fights it, you're like bang, you explode it and everyone dies. So that's a few things that can add towards damage. And of course, we did go a little longer as usual because I want to give you guys more insights and more knowledge. The best part about the game is discover things and to be able to test things on offline and share knowledge. And before the changes, the weakness used to increase damage enemy takes. For now, it doesn't do that. It just applies weakness. It used to say they take additional damage as well. This used to be great, but now I just take it for the defensive capacities. So we won't be going on for this one. And I think that's it. Those are the major things that can increase damage on any build. And hopefully you guys find this helpful. I'll be looking for more Wolcen guides, more Wolcen tips, and more gameplays for us in the future. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. I'll see you guys next time.